Okay, troubleshooting. This is things that come up that have been reminded to me. One is the tool sets. So under View, Tool Palettes, this large tool set will appear on the left-hand side. You can move it to the right if you're so inclined, but this is just a helpful shortcut. Derek was asking about hotkeys. There are hotkeys, some hotkeys available. Hotkeys are most necessary for forcing geometry to go into a certain axis, and that's really good in the push-pull tool, extending lines or things like that. But for the most part, a surface will appear. And you can push, with the push-pull tool, you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to force geometry into either the Y, X, or Z axis. So that's one of the options for hotkeys in SketchUp. It's helpful if you're trying to extend something up to use the up arrow key on your keyboard to just force geometry in that direction, or if you're forcing it to the right or otherwise. Some troubleshooting. Some problems arose in one of your classmates' models, as well as my own, and I forgot. Professor Dunaway told me how to fix it last year, and I forgot. So mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa. So I'll show you how to fix that now. So the problem is that buildings were merging with the curb layer, and so one of the things that she recommends in her 261 class when the sophomores are building their SketchUp models is to draw the buildings first from the aerial, from the reference aerial. So if we pull that up and I just pull up buildings, turn everything else off, exception of that, we see something like this. And so we are referencing buildings directly from the aerial photograph itself, whether that be imported or otherwise. She recommends drawing them first, and then making them a group. So by doing that, I select from the left to the right. This selects everything there. And I can add to a selection or subtract to a selection using the Shift key. I can actually subtract things from a selection, which is extremely helpful sometimes when you're getting into the nitty-gritty of these different geometries. So that's happening there. So now I basically selected just my buildings, and I'm going to make them a group. Okay. So that's now a group. I will now turn that. I will now make curve the active layer, and I can see here like, oh my, what's all this other crap? Get rid of that and start forcing some of these other entities, including these trees that I've selected. I'm going to, by the Shift key, I can select multiple things, and I can go right mouse click, entity info, and I can force them into another layer. And that's something that we covered last time. Hopefully that is helpful in terms of changing the layer that something is currently on. So I've forced all of that away now. Next, I'll turn off the background aerial photo, and I'll just select everything here, with the exception of my scale figure. And I will also make that a group. So all my curve now is a group. This will prevent the buildings and the curve from sticking to each other as you're pulling stuff up and things like that. Remember, our curve is 6 inches thick, so consequently your buildings will be kind of sinking into the curve. Professor Dunaway, then now that they're a group, we can now move them up 6 inches. So I will grab the Move tool, which is the 4-way red arrow. I will select my group. I will force the Z-axis by using the up key on my keyboard, and I will move them all up together 6 inches. Now our buildings are sitting directly on top of the curve. In theory, let's see if it worked. Turn everything else on. In theory. Now you can see a clear black line, which is the division between the building and the curve itself. So that should solve the problem that I was having in class last time, and the problem one of your classmates had identified to me at the end of class. As you can see, I moved them up too far. Whee! Looks like I moved them up 6 feet instead of 6 inches. So, as with many things, we just have to bring things down to earth. As in life, sometimes we just have to be brought down to earth. So, okay? I'm still looking for the perfect tree. This is a weird one, but it's one of those entities where it's a two-dimensional tree image, and it's been spun and repeated a couple of times around the trunk axis. These are maples, and so I'm still looking for the perfect tree. I hope you find one that you like. Doesn't look bad from the street view, honestly, but still looking anyway. So next. Some extents, and actually I'm going to select everything now and make this a component. So we're going to make this a component because I want to import it and then start to do stuff to it. Now I have to decide what are some of the changes that we're going to do on this street. It may involve moving these cars, it may involve adding more stuff to a bulb out or a parklet or more landscaping or more people space. So what this is going to do now is when we make it a component, it's going to be able to be imported into a new SketchUp model that we can do stuff to. So this is helpful when you're starting to create specific types of buildings that you'll be using in your master plan later on. Starting to create typologies that you're interested in, making a nice little office building or importing an office building and modifying it, making an apartment building or modifying it. Later on, you're going to, in the larger master plan for your site, you're going to want to be bringing in buildings as components. So we're going to make this a component. So to do that, we select everything, and then we select a component under Edit, and we'll give it a name. So this is 300 West Charles existing addition. And sometimes it's helpful to set the component axes because that creates the active corner by which you bring this into another model. At the moment, the axes are set at this corner. That's fine for us right now. In the future, as you start making your own components and want to bring multiples of them into a model, you'll want to set the axes here, which is going to create the active corner when you bring this thing into another model later on. So that's an option there. So that's now all one thing. So this model is saved, and it's now saved as a component. So we close that out and create a new file entirely. We'll start over with our friend here, and I will import that component. And we need to select Format SketchUp Files. Okay, 30. So you can bring in all these different formats. You need to bring it in as a SketchUp file. Import. And I'm testing my RAM a little bit, but you can see now that corner is the touchy corner, so I can just bring that to the origin there. And it's now all one thing. All right. So we can add things to this now, overlay things on this without it touching any of this other stuff. But chances are, we're going to want to make some changes. I'm interested, probably, if this were the block and it's in my hood, so it's down the street from me, maybe we can make something here for the apartment residents. It has some shade, which is nice. Maybe they don't need this parking because they have rear parking already. We can make an argument that we can create some people space here. You could also, if you're in this block, you could also argue that the church, which is being turned into, I believe, 6 apartment units, might enjoy something over here. So whatever. And if you're realigning the street in any way, looking at bike lanes or share roads or things like that, these are changes that you would now do on this new model. So if you're making changes to this or making additions to it, it's helpful to keep this original background component as its own thing. And we can actually add things to the environment without touching the model. But you can see, though, if you click on it at all, it's all one thing. Well, chances are, for these purposes, I need to go into this component and explode it. Now, exploding a component returns everything back to its original geometry. So everything's its own stuff again. When you bring in any component, whether it be a piece of furniture or a car or a person, you also have the ability to explode it and modify it. So let's say I wanted to explode this car and paint it all white for my model. You could do that. I could explode this and it would be really, really abstract looking trees. I can bring in a piece of furniture and explode it and again, paint it something else. So anytime you bring in a component, you have the ability to explode it and then it just becomes part of the model. So, for instance, now we no longer, my floating car, isn't he lovely? He's levitating there. Okay, just get rid of these. I've got the perspective camera on so you can see the dynamics of that. And now I'm interested in doing something here. So once we've exploded the component as we brought it into the model, all the layers are retained. Any parklet that I make here, I still have to keep at least 5 feet or 6 feet clearance for 2 wheelchairs to pass each other. On this block, there is a slight slope in the pavement. I walk in this block frequently, so there are some utilities and things like nearby. So we need to keep a good 5 feet of clearance, whatever we do. Again, that an active layer. So I'm just going to start, instead of fighting the SketchUp, I'm just going to start drawing now some stuff. This is on a proposed parklet layer. And I'm basically taking over these 2 parking spots. And I will raise this up 6 inches. Raise this up 6 inches. So on. And going out the colors. We go to materials. We've got asphalt and concrete, landscaping, fencing, and vegetation. Those are some colors that we can start to reference. We can engage in some sort of pattern with this. I really like the offset tool here, which gives us the ability to offset a pattern, some sort of pattern here. So I'll offset that in for 1 foot work. Foot. The offset tool is very similar to what the offset tool is in AutoCAD. Basically creating a new shape within that shape. So that's the beginning of something. I'll offset in this triangle here, also with 1 foot. And maybe offset that in 1 foot. And then, this is again, active layer proposed parklet. I may need to even grab some of these entities and just make sure that they are on that new layer. That's just something I want to check as I work. There is some brick paving here, so we'll start to paint that in. And now we've basically taken over these 2 parking spaces, and we're starting to think about something that might be here. some guidelines. There we go. 1 foot guideline there. Grab these two things, copy and paste them. Place them. Face the ground. Create some extension lines from here to the building and start a pattern. Whatever works for you. So start to impact the front of this building and how that might start to look as a parklet or as people space. And a couple ways to do this. Well, you can offset this. Thought I could. Start moving it around. And keep painting. Paste in place, and then I can move things. There, now that's marginally acceptable. So we've got a throughway here, and maybe a throughway here. Let's start to think about the sidewalk as an aisleway or something like that, where it works for your location. And then, still the active layer, grab some concrete, other appropriate material, start to paint that. So just getting a pattern going. Just to play. Okay. That's fine. Clean stuff up, you can always move things later. Okay, then maybe there's a spot for a tree. We can put in adequate sized thing there. Start to paint that something else. Landscaping, fencing, vegetation. Back again. There's some pea gravel there. Bring in another entity in the form of a tree from the 3D warehouse. Warehouse demands certain specificities, it seems. Comes in, puts it there. Again, I can tell it where to be, tell it which layer I want it to be in. With entity info, that's a right mouse click again. Entity info, and I can tell it to be on the landscape layer, which then I will now make active. Let's do a fence. So now we've got a little bit of a paving pattern going, and we've taken over 2 parking spaces. Let's do a fence, and going to grab the corner of this and take it to this, and then pull this up 3 feet, and it just, oops, it makes a standing rectangle. Force it to the z-axis. Up 3 feet. There's a little standing fence. Go down, down, down. So now, once you get a 3-foot thing going, you've got some opportunity just to reference different rectangles like that. Under the paint tool again, under materials for landscape fencing and vegetation, there is a lovely little fence option where we can simply paint fence onto the side of that rectangle. That's much better than modeling the fence. Much more efficient than modeling the fence. So, okay. Other things in the 3D warehouse that might be worthy of this, given our new traffic pattern, or if we're rethinking the traffic pattern, you may want a bollard, which could stop a speeding car from mowing down your entire parklet. These either come as single entities or they come as collections. So if you're importing a collection, I would download it to your desktop and open it as a SketchUp model and then cut and paste entities from it. If it's a single entity like this, then you can load it directly into the model. So I'll place that bollard there with the hope that it will stop a car from impacting my fence. I'll copy and then paste and then start to place those around the model. There's different brands, different types. Some bollards are lit. Some bollards are not. Frequent piece of urban furniture in pedestrian-rich areas in which you are trying to protect the pedestrians from an errant car jumping the curb. So place those as you see fit. Just gonna station those around. Like little soldiers. Other things I may be interested in, go back to the warehouse. Street flower pots. There's a few of those. Some are better than others. Some are kind of weird. Some are from very specific collections. Some have more detail than others. That's an 8 megabyte file. Oh, nice. Not that interested in intensive. But our standard one can come in and start to station out. I'll just copy and paste that. I want to be on the proposed parklet as the active layers. So again, I'll keep forcing entities to go to the appropriate layer, maybe landscape or proposed parklet. Looks like I've got a little bit of a problem here. I think these things are floating. So I'll get those down to the earth. cafe seating or cafe tables. Outdoor seating, benches, bus stops. You know, so those of you in the St. Lawrence neighborhood may want to do a more articulated or structured bus stop for that bus line that runs through your block.